Imagine meeting someone who really sparks your interest, who makes you think, I want this person to see me as someone unique, unforgettable. Now, think about what it would be like to make such a strong impression that, even after years, this person still remembers you as someone different from anyone else they've ever met. Sound impossible? It's not. Today we're going to reveal how to make a lasting impression on them. And most importantly, the last tip will be so powerful that it can completely change the way you relate to them. Before we begin, subscribe to the Red Pill Feminine channel, like, comment, and share this video with someone you think could benefit from this information. Throughout this content, we'll reveal the secrets to creating true and impactful connections, something that is rarely discussed honestly and in depth. When we talk about making a lasting impression, we're not talking about superficial tricks or manipulation games. We're talking about something much deeper. The ability to impact someone goes beyond appearance or the right words. It's about how you can create a meaningful moment, an instant in which your essence connects with theirs in a unique way. To understand this, let's start by dismantling one of the biggest myths propagated in popular books and advice. The idea that being memorable is just about being different. Different can be interesting, but it's not enough to be unforgettable. The real difference is authenticity, being who you are in a way that reflects your beliefs but with purpose and intention. Author Mark Manson, in his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, addresses the importance of being honest with yourself before trying to impress others. He states in Chapter 3 that people are attracted to people who are clear about what they value, because it reflects a rare kind of emotional security and independence. And that's exactly what creates a lasting impression, when you're not trying to please, but rather being true to yourself. Now let me ask you a direct question. Have you ever stopped to think about what makes you unique? Not what you think others expect of you, but what truly defines who you are. Too often we're so concerned with conforming to other people's expectations that we forget that the real impact lies in embracing what makes us different. To make someone remember you, it's essential to create an emotional connection. This doesn't happen by forcing common interests or trying to impress them with information about your life. Instead, it comes from being present, actively listening, and responding genuinely. Studies by John Gottman, one of the world's leading relationship experts, show that 94% of successful connections are based on empathy and emotional validation. In other words, listening, understanding, and acknowledging what the other person is feeling can be the key to becoming unforgettable. But what exactly does it mean to emotionally validate someone? It's acknowledging their feelings even if you don't agree. It's showing that you care about what they're sharing without trying to fix or minimize it. For example, if they share a challenge they're facing, instead of saying something generic like, "It's going to be okay," try something deeper. "I can imagine how hard that must be. Thank you for trusting me to share that." Another key to making a lasting impression is demonstrating consistency. Many people believe that doing something great once is enough, but the truth is that we are remembered by how consistently we display our best qualities. Consider what author Robert Greene wrote in Chapter 9 of the 48 Laws of Power. Repetition builds authority and admiration. Absence creates oblivion. If you're only there sporadically, it's harder to build a lasting memory. On the other hand, if you're consistent in showing empathy, genuine interest, and authenticity, it creates a solid foundation in their mind that will stand the test of time. Now, I want you to think about it. Are you being consistent in the signals you send? Or are you vacillating between showing interest and disappearing? It is essential to align your actions with your intention to be unforgettable. If you are already enjoying this content, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us what you thought so far. Your opinion is very important and can inspire others who are watching. The next part of this video will be even more revealing. We will talk about the most common mistakes that prevent you from making that lasting impression, and of course, reveal practical techniques to change this immediately. Now that we have talked about how to be authentic and consistent, let's explore some of the most common mistakes that prevent many women from making a lasting impression. Many of these mistakes are unintentional, but with a little attention, they can easily be corrected. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to make a lasting impression is constantly seeking approval. Have you ever noticed how some people, especially in relationships, become overly concerned with being approved? They try so hard to please that they end up missing out on the opportunity to be themselves. This doesn't mean being rude or uncaring, but rather stopping trying to be perfect in the eyes of others. In fact, this behavior can have the opposite effect. Instead of being remembered for your authenticity, you become seen as someone who is only there to satisfy other people's needs, and that never creates a lasting impression. People remember people who have the courage to be who they are, without fear of being judged. This brings us to a crucial point: confidence. Confidence is undoubtedly one of the biggest assets to making an unforgettable impression. However, we are not talking about superficial confidence, based only on appearance or pretty words. We are talking about an internal confidence that comes from within, when you are truly secure in who you are and what you stand for. Let's go back to Mark Manson for a moment. In Chapter 7 of his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, he talks about how true confidence comes from knowing what you are not willing to tolerate. He suggests that instead of trying to please everyone, it is more powerful to focus on who you are and the boundaries you set for yourself. When you are clear about what is non-negotiable for you, it naturally conveys a strength that is impossible to ignore. Now stop and think. What are your boundaries? What do you truly value about yourself that you are not willing to give up for anything or anyone? Once you start living by these principles, your presence will begin to have a different energy. You will stop trying to fit in and start standing out. Another common mistake is being overly available. Yes, availability may seem like a positive thing, but when it is excessive, it ends up transmitting a feeling of neediness. People tend to value more what they do not have easy access to. This applies to relationships as well. When you make yourself available at all times, without room for mystery or for the other person to miss your presence, the impression that is left is that you have nothing left to offer. Now, this does not mean that you should be an inaccessible or indifferent person. The key is balance. Being someone with your own life, interests, and projects, and not just defining yourself by the relationship or the person in question, is what creates the desire to get closer. This brings us to an important question. How do you position yourself within your own life? Do you have your own projects, your own passions, or are you just waiting for someone else's approval to feel complete? To make a lasting impression, you need to be someone who has their own path, who is constantly growing and developing. Remember what Robert Greene says in The 48 Laws of Power, in Law 6, get attention at all costs. This attention should not be forced nor based on exaggeration. True attention comes from your own brilliance, from your unique energy, which makes others want to be around you. This is only possible when you position yourself as someone who is not desperate for attention, but who receives it because you have something to offer. Now, I ask you a question. Have you ever thought about how you position yourself in the situations you find yourself in? Are you aware of the power you have when you put yourself in a place of self-affirmation? Or are you still seeking external acceptance? The secret to making a lasting impression is recognizing that you are already enough, that you do not need anyone to validate who you are or what you have to offer. If you're still enjoying the content, share it with someone who could also benefit from this information, and don't forget to subscribe to the Red Pill Feminine channel. Let's demystify these concepts together and show you what really matters to make a lasting impression. Now I'm going to share with you the next phase of this journey: how to use your presence in a way that will indelibly imprint your image on his mind. We're going to talk about how to build a deep emotional connection, something that transcends appearance and sticks in his memory. Now that we've talked about the importance of being authentic, consistent, and confident, let's dive into how you can build an emotional connection that really stands out. When it comes to making a lasting impression, it's not enough to just be interesting or pleasant. You need to be able to create something more, something that touches the other person deeply, in a way they've never experienced before. This type of connection is what really imprints your image on his mind. And the good news is that it's completely possible to achieve this with a few simple but powerful practices. First of all, you need to understand that emotions are the basis of any deep relationship. What makes us stand out are not just the rational moments, but the moments when we feel deeply touched, understood, or even challenged. In the book The Power of Vulnerability, psychologist Brené Brown talks about the importance of being vulnerable to create real connections. She highlights that true courage lies in showing ourselves as we really are, without masks, and that this is what generates trust and closeness. It is precisely when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable that we are able to create this emotional space between us and the other person. Therefore, the first thing you must do to create this connection is to be willing to be genuine. Show your emotions honestly. without fear of appearing fragile or imperfect. This does not mean being overly emotional, but rather allowing the other person to see your true reactions to situations. When they realize that you are real and not a fabricated version of yourself, the connection begins to deepen. But be careful. Being vulnerable is not the same as being dramatic or manipulative. Vulnerability should be authentic and not a way to garner attention or generate artificial sympathy. People can sense when someone is trying to play the victim or provoke pity. True vulnerability comes from a place of trust and comfort in your own skin. When you share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences without expecting anything in return, you are laying the groundwork for a deep connection. And how do you build that lasting emotional connection? The key is empathy. Empathy is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and truly understand what they are feeling, without judgment. To be memorable, you need to be more than a good listener. You need to listen with intention, with the goal of understanding, not responding. Often, people are just looking for someone to listen to them, but what really makes an impression is when we feel that we have been fully understood. And that is only possible when you make a genuine effort to understand the other person's needs, desires, and even insecurities. In the book Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman talks about how empathy and emotional intelligence are fundamental to establishing strong human relationships. He explains that people with high emotional intelligence are able to perceive the emotions of others, and this creates a feeling of connection and acceptance. To be unforgettable for him, you need to demonstrate this ability, not only by paying attention to what he says, but also by noticing what he doesn't say. Often, words are not as revealing as the gestures, expressions, and feelings that hide behind what is said. Empathy is also directly linked to the ability to make the other person feel safe by your side. One of the greatest desires of human beings is the search for emotional security. When they feel safe sharing something with you, without fear of being judged or despised, the connection is strengthened. This creates a sense of mutual trust, and you become someone they can trust, someone they can open up to without fear. And remember, trust is one of the most solid pillars for creating a lasting impression. Furthermore, it is important to know when to give space and when to get closer. Most people feel that they must be available all the time, but this can be a mistake. True emotional connection is built when there is a balance between closeness and distance. It is not about being an inaccessible person, but rather knowing that sometimes letting the other person miss you can increase their perception of your value. Author Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, suggests in Law 16 that use absence to increase respect and honor. This does not mean disappearing without explanation, but rather giving space when necessary, so that your presence is felt more intensely when you return. Now tell me, have you ever thought about how you manage space and closeness in your relationships? When you get too close or too far away, you may be sending the wrong messages. The secret is to find the balance, to be someone they can count on, but also someone who maintains your independence and mystery. Throughout this video, we demystify the process of making a lasting impression and talk about how you can become unforgettable to him. But before we wrap up, I want to reinforce one crucial point. There is no magic formula that works for everyone, because each person is unique. However, the strategies we discuss here are universal, based on deep human principles that transcend any superficial relationship. Now think for a moment. How have you been remembered by the people in your life? Are you creating authentic connections, or are you just going through these interactions without leaving a significant mark? If you liked the content so far, be sure to share this video with your friends, subscribe to the Red Pill Feminina channel, like it, and comment with your opinion. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more relevant content like this. Now let's move on to the final part, where we will reveal the last and most powerful tip for becoming unforgettable to him. It is simple but extremely effective, and will change the way you relate to others forever. Want to know what it is? Stay with me until the end. Let's move on to the final part, the most powerful of all. Now that we've covered authenticity, trust, empathy, and the balance between closeness and distance, it's time to reveal the secret that will truly make a lasting impression on him. Are you ready for this revelation? The last tip is simple, but extremely impactful. Be someone who challenges him to be better. You might be wondering, how can this be the key to becoming unforgettable? Well, let me explain. Most people are attracted to those who have something more to offer than what they already have. When you're around someone who challenges you in a constructive way, someone who doesn't accept mediocrity, and who always inspires the best in you, that person becomes indispensable. They're not just there to comfort or please, but to make you develop, grow, and become a better version of yourself. And when someone has that kind of impact on another person's life, it's impossible to forget. This does not mean that you should become a kind of coach or be critical in a destructive way. Quite the opposite. The challenge here is to inspire through example and subtle but profound provocation. You do not need to constantly talk about what he should improve or change, but rather be a force that, in an indirect way, motivates him to improve. Think for a moment about the people you consider unforgettable. Many of them are probably not those who were always there to comfort you, but rather those who, in some way, made you think, question your choices, and reflect on how you could be better. These people leave a mark because they provoke growth and evolution, and that is what you need to be for him. Someone who, through your presence, challenges him to be the best version of himself. This idea is supported by several scholars and experts in human behavior. For example, in the book Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins talks about the power of challenging the people around us to leave their comfort zone. He points out that it is through discomfort, through overcoming challenges, that people truly grow and become more connected to their own potential. What does this mean in a relationship context? It means that you must be the person who motivates him to reach new levels of fulfillment, whether in his professional, personal, or even emotional life. Now let's reflect. Are you being that person for him? Are you encouraging his growth or limiting yourself to a superficial and comfortable interaction? If you truly want to make a lasting impression, it is essential to be someone who inspires evolution, who challenges mediocrity, and who provokes reflection. And this is only possible when you are willing to do this first with yourself. If you are not constantly evolving and seeking to be the best version of yourself, how can you expect the other person to develop alongside you? It is important to remember that the true power to leave a mark does not come from manipulating or superficially impressing, but from being genuinely invested in mutual growth. When you act this way, your presence in his life becomes unforgettable because he knows that being with you means being with someone who will always push him forward, towards a better future. Furthermore, by being someone who challenges you in a positive way, you position yourself as a person of high value. In The Mathematics of Relationships, author Rollo Tomassi talks about how a person's value in a relationship is determined by the amount of challenges they present, in constructive ways, to their partner. By being this person, you not only make a lasting impression, but you also set a high standard of relationship that they won't want to lose. Now, before I close, I want to leave you with one final thought. What have you done to challenge the other person to be better? How have you contributed to their growth and, more importantly, to your own growth? Of course, for this dynamic to happen effectively, you need to be willing to invest in yourself, to constantly seek personal evolution. Only then will you be able to inspire the other person to do the same. If you've gotten this far and are absorbing all these ideas, don't forget to like, comment on what you thought of the content, and share it with other people who can also benefit from this type of knowledge. Subscribe to the Red Pill Feminine channel to continue learning about how to become unforgettable and constantly evolve in your relationships. And, if you want to deepen your knowledge on this topic even further, I recommend 2 incredible videos that are on the final screen. The first is about how to understand his real desires and needs, and the second is about how to be a high-value woman, a topic that complements everything we discussed today. Don't miss it. And remember, the lasting impression you make will always be a reflection of the impact you have on his life, and more importantly, how you impact your own life. Be the change you want to see in the other person, and by doing so, you will become unforgettable. That was the last part of our video. I hope it was useful and inspiring for you. Until next time.